If there was an activity where you had to be in a face-to-face environment and meeting people, then it wouldn't work well in blended. So what kind of activity would that be? I guess something where you are being judged on your performance. For instance, sport. If you had an activity where you're testing the speed of swimmers. It's hard to do that virtually. I mean, you can tape yourself and post it up online in a video format and have your coach analyze your strokes, backstroke and front stroke. I mean, so I guess some kind of a performance-based sport or performance kinesthetic, I guess a surgeon kind of thing. I mean, you can teach surgery skills online, and there's all sorts of virtual world, or I should say, there's all sorts of collaborative projects in UCLA where the doctors are performing a medical procedure of some kind, and a third doctor might be explaining to the students virtually what's happening at that point in time. But I think any place where you're doing performance, ballerinas, music, duels, there are actually software and technologies 15 years ago where people were playing instruments in Canada and the US at the same time, but there's a delay speed, so the sync in the delay. There's one of my students is studying something called the virtual choir. There's a gentleman named Eric Whitaker who's got a virtual choir performances. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's fascinating if you can type that in. And they did a live performance of people in a virtual choir behind him while they had performers in front of him live, trying to sync those two things up. They had to put a certain delay in, and he was successfully able to do that. But I've seen people playing violin, from two different locations simultaneously. But so when you ask me what would be difficult to do blended, I would say performance kinds of things. Those become more difficult. Doesn't mean you can't simulate it and approximate it with some kind of augmented reality or case or scenario or some approximation of it before doing the live performance. So you can still have a blended experience prior to and after. It's just if you ask me what would be difficult to do as an activity, just as an activity, it'd be the live performance kinds of things in sport, medicine, theater. But it's not impossible. And I've seen theater, I've seen fashion design, and you were into fashion design a little bit, just design. And Simon Fraser University in the New York Institute of Fashion or something had an online fashion show and things like that. This is 10 years ago. I mean, so people are doing this stuff. They're just saying, so it's not impossible. When you ask who does not work well, whose question was this? That was so those things would not work well, but they can be approximated, and there might be some benefits to doing that. Someone asked if you create a video for the BBC, if you create and work for the BBC and use it in your learning, is there a copyright implication? I was with Brian Ford last night at Cambridge, and he talked about this very thing. He wrote a book, and he had done a video for the BBC, or I think it was BBC, and it was Fox News, and they had to get permission, but they were surprised that they actually they wrote to them and got permission to use it. If you created that video for Fox or for the BBC or for CNN, you do, even though you are in the video or you helped create that video, you still need to ask permission to use that video in a place where you're selling that content. If you're using it in your class to show something, our attorneys say you don't have to worry. If it's a public link, you don't have to worry about it. Now, if you created a video and it's a private link and only you have that link, you run into an ethical quandary there. Whether, I know some of my videos I've put up or done, people give me the password. Can I show that to my class? I know the password, but is that legal and ethical to show something where I'm in it, I'm being interviewed, but there's a password protection? I think you probably need to ask permission. Now, I think you need to ask permission was what I said. Do I ask? For that kind of thing. To show it to my students, I take a little more liberal stance. I don't think the BBC or Fox News is going to come to every classroom where there's a video being shown. But to sell something, or to show it at a conference, for instance, in front of thousands of people, then you might want to take the more cautious route. But if you have a class of 10 people, but definitely if the link is live, if the link is available, But you can also talk to your attorneys in your campus or to others in your department. Marks I can't read. You're going to have to read that for me.
How well are institutions organised to provide the space and time to allow staff to discover the freely available resources, tools, let alone rethink education beyond the enthusiasts?
You know, I see a lot of changes in design on college campuses today. That doesn't answer your question, but I see in Adelaide, Australia, for instance, they have a learning hub. And when I was there a year and a half ago, didn't want to leave. It was like a Starbucks or Barnes & Noble kind of thing, or what do you call it, Costa Coffee here or something. You just want to hang out, you know, and have a good time. I see this more and more, where the spaces are modifiable, they're more comfortable. You know, there's different kinds of chair arrangements. There's more social spaces being built in buildings for the students to interact. I haven't seen the same thing happen for the faculties to interact as much, but we do see more trainings and workshops. I think online learning and blended learning has forced us to change face-to-face classrooms in a way because they see the options, they see the alternative paths, and now they're seeing the importance of informal learning that links to the formal. The OER, Open Ed, has fostered a huge emphasis on informal learning on your own pace and own time. And so now the physical spaces are being changed so that there's a side collaboration station that, you know, and modifiable chairs. We moved this whole room. This did not look this way this morning. It was all rows in here. And Mark and I fortunately got here early enough that we're not sitting in rows here right now, or we'd be suffering through all this, you know. So, and who else helped us? Someone else? Dan helped us. Yeah, there, he helped us out. Thank you, Dan. So, you know, to partly answer your question, no. The answer is no. However, I think in Finland, it was a case in point already 10 years ago. Their teaching and learning centers were changing quite fast. They were on the bleeding edge with Nokia smartphones and other things. Their spaces, their physical spaces were changing. And I see this in other countries as well, that the learning centers are having a voice in how space is being allocated or designed for active, engaging learning, for teamwork, for personal reflection, for exploration. We just don't do that for us, you know. We lack that license to reflect and discuss and explore. These are the prime ways in which we learn, actually, in many ways. So it's a great question. Yeah.
There's also the issue, it's not just physical space, it's about space in the timetable.
Yes.
The teaching responsibilities, the
That's
pressures on academic stuff.
Yeah.
How many institutions have you found where time is made for teaching staff to explore and develop?
You know, the early days of the web, that was the case.
And also a secondary part
Yep.
of that is where there's some recognition in professional terms of achievements.
Chapter 14 in the book gets into some of that, where I'm seeing the recognition side. Time allocation is a different story, but we do see recognitions that might be monetary, might be non-monetary, might be acknowledgments, might be some recognitions and so forth, might be additional travel monies, might be something, additional money for tech, for experimenting and that kind of, that's pretty common actually, that kind of thing. But time is not so common. Release time does happen through small pots of money. You know, summer kinds of release time, instead of teach a class in the summer, you get this pot of money to redesign your class to integrate technology. That's more common than during the academic year. I don't know how your summers work here, but in the U.S. we have some people like to teach in the summer, and their money's being made available for a small percent of the faculties to integrate technology in their classes. That's kind of common, but during the academic year it's not so common. It used to be in the early days of the web. That was one of the first things that was experimented with. Release time kinds of things. We don't see that so much anymore. At least I don't. Yeah, I don't see that as much anymore. Any other questions before I go to part 3? Or comments? I've queued up a few things, and in part 4 I've queued up a few videos that are kind of interesting, I think. They seem to be playing. I got through the I got through the ads, so I've got them queued up so we don't have to watch the ads, I think, I hope. So, you know, this part is kind of near and dear to my heart because, you know, I've just finished, you know, the book after 14 years of thinking about it and 3 years of writing, and as I said, 7 years of researching and 10 years of speaking on the topic. So, you know, I think I know this topic a little bit. but maybe I can learn something from all of you, for how you're using some of these ideas and activities and resources that are available. I mean, what I talked about at Middlesex University in 2005 and up at Napier in Edinburgh and Leicester, back when I toured around that way, that was the direction I went back in 2005. I don't think I got a single thing that I showed related to this talk that I'm talking about now, or maybe I have a different framework for it, a different slant on it, if you will, or a different way to think about it, if you will. So we'll focus on engagement. Thank you very much. So engage, and you'll know I have, of course, some typical Star Wars and. Okay, so we're going to move to another frontier. Okay, we're going to boldly go. So we're going to boldly go into motivation and retention. There's a lot of people focused today on motivation and retention. I mean, every time you open the newspaper, you hear about dropout rates, you hear about lack of student motivation. You know, what are we going to do to motivate kids? What can we do? And all this kind of stuff. We see even, you know, retaining students is a bigger problem today than 2004. We see administrators saying 2013, the retention of students has become a more salient issue than it was previously in research on online courses in particular. So we see this up to 40-some% of administrators say that this suggests this is an issue. 2 weeks ago, there was an announcement from Starbucks that they're going to let all employees take first 2 years of college free. A huge benefit for employees, whether you plan to continue to work at Starbucks or not. You can quit and not have to pay them back a cent, in fact. Arizona State and Starbucks have banded together for tens of thousands of workers to enable them to get a 2-year associate degree, maybe even beyond that. And that kind of program is a motivator for people to go to education. So this is an example of something that does motivate. Now, it's something we can't control, but it's an example of something recently in the news. And maybe we'll see more of this kind of thing, where the corporations out there will form partnerships with universities to get their employees degrees and so forth. So we do lack motivation. When I was in Japan last September, I saw a lot of sleeping students. Yeah. They were, Japan, they have the cram schools to get into college, but once they get there, they don't study quite seriously. So Jean-Luc Picard said engage. My motivation model, and by the way, I have 10 principles of motivation in this book. And I've been signing books during lunch, a few, and I found one that's upside down. So I want to give this one to Mark, since he's kind of an upside down kind of. No. I do have another book for Mark. I don't want to really leave him with an upside down book. I do have one for you here, Mark, somewhere in here. I think this one is yours. There you go. So you get an upside down and a right side up book. And I want to give Sue a book before she has to go take care of her little baby back home, since I was one of her helpers for dissertation a long time ago. It's 2007? Can it be that long? So Jean-Luc said, engage. Everyone on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, engage. Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, engage. All right. Yeah. What was that he said? All right. 1, 2, 3. Okay, Jean-Luc, go away. Okay.
We get the warhead.
We hold the world ransom for $1 million. Okay. So, $1 million. For $1 million, what words come to mind when I say motivation? What words come to mind when I say motivation? You might say a word like feedback. Oh, that's a good word, feedback. You might say a word like fun, some F words, okay? Feedback, fun, fantasy. What other words might come to mind when I say motivation? Reward. Number 2 on my list is rewards. B.F. Skinner would love you. Okay, rewards, okay? It's your $1 million Obama's not spending on the stimulus package, okay? We actually have a surplus maybe this year, I don't know. But incentives, rewards, incentives, exactly. You're number 2. Everyone's focused on number 2. They need incentives here. What is this, Mark? Everyone needs extrinsic stroking here. Well, resources, opportunities, right? Options, resources, ways in which you can decide your own learning path, right? Okay, what else do we have here? 2 other words. Yeah. Achievement, doing so, accomplishments. Yeah, accomplishing something, knowing that you've done well, right? Success. Success motivates. Small successes. You had something back there.
I was going to say creativity.
Creativity, okay. Spontaneity, generativity. When you're generating ideas, when you know you're designing ideas, that was heard as design stuff. You're designing stuff, you're going to be more motivated to be involved because it's you producing something. That's number 10 on the list, sort of. Producing something, being generative in life, not just being passive, consuming, but producing, pushing, right?
Opportunity.
What did you say? Resources. And I said what? Opportunities. Ah, you heard me well. I'll give you $1 million anyways. Okay. All right. Got a few more million. Anyone need $1 million? What's that? Recognition. You've already got $1 million, but I'll give you recognition. There's the second $1 million. You're coming to the bar later to spend it. Buy me a round. I'll get some Stella with that. I think, we can probably get some Budweiser with those,
Money then, number 1.
That's number 2 in the list. Everyone likes number 2 in the list. It's money. It's number 2 in the list. We still haven't got number 1 in the list. Satisfaction with our result. Oh, that was you. Okay. Did you have your hand up too? Your little company needs some stimulus. What was? Okay. Well, just you have a small startup company, right? There's $3 million. Keep you going. All right. So let's look at what we have here in the list. Jerry Brophy, who recently passed away at Michigan State, has been studying motivation for a long time. As I said, fun, fantasy, feedback, those are 3 of the words that he used, some F words, right? Enthusiasm, Mark used that earlier to describe me. I don't know if I've been that enthusiastic in this talk, but maybe later I will be. Personal, giving people individualized feedback, customized learning. You know that it's these unique opportunities because I customize the learning for you. Goals, going back to our creativity point, people are, produce products. They're creative. They generate ideas and so forth. Rewards, a few of you said rewards in here. No one said challenge. No one said, it's ironic, nobody said meaningful. I was surprised. Or authentic learning or relevant learning. Supportive, which we talked about during lunch a bit, the scaffolds, the supports that we need to provide for students. Peer interaction. Dissonance, this goes back to competition. This goes back to creativity, divergence, producing something, but dissonance, competition, the fact that you don't know something while you're driving on the road. Who is that invented penicillin, or we were talking about Fleming, right? We were talking about that yesterday in the car, and other things. And we go back to the Wikipedia or wherever online when we got back. So dissonance in your brain. Improvement. We talked about improvement. Everyone's talking about successes, improvement. So I looked at this list, and I've been reading books by other psychologists out there on motivation. For a couple of decades, I've been reading books on motivation. And one of the top people in the field, D.C. and Ryan, Edward D.C. and Richard Ryan, worked on a book on motivation and self-determined learning. In there, they talk about seeking out opportunities, pushing to one's edges of competencies, their capabilities, doing something, mastering something, seeking out new challenges, new opportunities, pushing ahead. Someone had push in your 3 words earlier, pushing ahead. At the edge of your competencies. That's why dissertation defense is we push students to the edges, right, of their competencies. I looked at those principles from Brophy and from D.C. and Ryan, and over time, in fact, at Middlesex, I had these 10 principles, but not in this order. After a couple of years of presenting after Middlesex in 2005, I reorganized my list, starting with tone or climate, psychologically safe climate, Abraham Maslow said, a comfortable environment, a sense of belonging. Number 1, B.F. Skinner said, encouragement, feedback, responsiveness, supports. We need shaping learning through extrinsic motivation like money and so forth. Curiosity, fun, and games comes from Thomas Malone in the gaming literature. And then we push on into variety, novelty, intrigue, unknowns. And maybe we'll do a quick little coffee thing, but we'll, before it gets cold. Autonomy, relevance, and novelty, variety. Autonomy gets into student self-directed learning. With all this OER out there, we have more opportunities because it's not a scarcity of resources anymore. We're in a plethora of resources. We're in an abundance of resources today. And so we have more opportunities. Opportunities is what what's your name? Paul. What Paul said, opportunities, choice, flexibility. When she said resources, that's all right here. Relevance, Interactive, collaborative, team-based engagement or effort, and tension, challenge. Piaget said in the psychology literature we need to be in a state of disequilibrium, dissonance, that we don't know something. If we know we don't know, we push into it and we go look for it. And then some psychologists say we need a goal. We need a product to be working on. And they created product-based learning, project-based learning, problem-based learning. You hear these P words a lot. Anyone ever use problem-based learning in their curricula? That's number 10, you know. And a lot of the, in fact, a lot of the medical schools in the U.S. are using a PBL approach. Our dentistry school at IU was all problem-based learning. They found that didn't quite fully work. They went to some basic courses to start with, then went to problem-based learning. They tried the whole curricula. It didn't work as the whole curricula. It worked at the latter half of the curricula here. Medical schools, Southern Illinois, and other ones were the first to adopt this approach. So it does come from that area. If you look at all these, it spells TEC-Variety, and I can make the case that number 1's the most important, because I went from 30% drops to 0 by doing this stuff that had nothing to do with the content. Because students learned about each other, their interests, their hobbies, their expectations, their commitments. I can make the case that this is the most important because students want feedback on everything they do. I can make the case that this is the most important because when you add this in, students tend to be challenged to the edges and they push hard and they do more work. They volunteer to do stuff that I didn't assign. I can make a case that this is the most important. I mean, any of these, you could make a case. In fact, the most downloaded chapter is this one, Curiosity. The second most downloaded is this one, Relevance, on the book. So you can make a case for any of these as being important, and I can also state that you could use 4 of these and have more success perhaps than using all 10. You might be trying too much by embedding all 10. So you have to think thoughtfully on how to integrate ideas. Now, here's the TEC-Variety book website. Let me just click on this in case you want to see what the website looks like. You can download the whole book by clicking here. Now, up will come, you want to subscribe to my newsletter. I don't have a newsletter, but you can still type in if you want, or you just hit, no, I don't want that, and you can download the entire book. So there it is, the entire book. You can, and my son designed the cover there, just a little side and blah, blah, blah. So you can get the whole thing. If you go to free stuff, you can get each chapter. And you can get all my talks here in Finland and the talk that we're doing right here at King's College. All 4 of them are downloadable, the PowerPoints and the PDFs, just as a little aside. So you can get a number of things for free here by clicking on that website. If I go to my homepage, I told you I'd show you earlier, the 27 videos I did for teaching online is right underneath my picture. So you want to explore the video on planning an online course, managing an online course, or reducing plagiarism, or building community, or providing feedback. We have little 10-minute videos on each one of these topics. Blended learning implementation. Up comes the video, 10 minutes long, that explains about that particular. Okay, that's, well, skip me. If you want to see my monster syllabus, 75-page syllabus about, let's go back here. You want to learn about ebooks, click on the week on ebooks, and up comes articles on ebooks and resources on ebooks, all the ebook resources you can imagine. And you want mobile learning, again, up will come articles on mobile and then resources on mobile learning. If you want to do e-learning, blended learning, so forth and so on. That syllabus is there. What else is I going to show? Oh, yeah, under web resources, if you're looking for a job in the field of educational technology, I have a portal of jobs, 30 different websites to find a job. I was putting up for Sue's, but no. If you're looking to publish in the field, I've indexed all the journals in the field of educational technology to publish in, over 90 journals. But what I wanted to show you was the website on, if you want to get a master's or doctorate in the field, I've got a portal of all the universities. But what was I going to show you? The shared, oh, here. So this is a link to all the video resources from BBC to Book TV. You want interviews of authors and Book TV. We've got Clip Chef. You want to learn what to cook for your spouse for dinner, go to Master Chef or Clip Chef. You can go to ICU Health for healthcare kinds of things. You can go to MedTube for medical, multimedia directory for medical health and health for health professionals. New York Times, TED Talks, TED Ed. So what TED has done is create little snippets of TED Talks for educational contents and put test questions around them. So I've got an index or a portal off my homepage of 80-some video sites that you can use in your instruction. I've just, YouTube, of course, YouTube, EDU, and so forth. I personally use video in my classes on learning theory. Each week I have a set of videos that I can show on behavioral theory, cognitive theory, you name the theory. I have a whole bunch of videos that my students and I have gathered over the last 5-10 years. And we keep filtering it and adding to and deleting and so forth. The man with the incredible brain. I talk about working memory and so forth and so on. So I have lots of videos that I embed. Here's one on motivation in my classes. So so how did I get this? So this book basically is free for anyone to download. Anyone can get this. It's had 10,000 in the first couple months. So examples of TEC-Variety model. It's a new tool called Flipgrid, which initially was free from my friends at the University of Minnesota. You betcha. They've put up a tool where you have video discussions. Instead of text discussions, you have video discussions. My friend Mark in Tampere came in from a hot tub, of course, and added to the video discussions. Last week at the conference in Tampere on Ed Media, they used this to have people introduce each other using this tool. So you could meet people before the conference. You could do this with your class. Unfortunately, they have put a little price on this one. It's not free. Most of the things I'm going to show you are free. This one's interesting. I like it. I'm using it, but actually, maybe I could click on this. I'm not sure where this will go. So it's taking a little bit of time. It's won awards already, this little tool that they built at Minnesota in the EdTech program. Unfortunately, it's taking longer to load than I want, so I'm going to click on. So, Toner Climate. Some teachers create little videos of their classroom and explain to students what they're going to find in their classroom if they walk in. This teacher is an art teacher in Malaysia. She says, hi to the students. This is what you're going to find happening in my class. And here's... So many college instructors today are embedding video. Our professors in the business school at IU all put a video up of themselves that are 2 minutes long, introducing themselves on the front end so students can see who the person is, what they're about. Now some of our students are putting videos up of themselves. This woman teaches French in a 2-year college, and she put up a video explaining what students will learn, setting the tone, setting the climate, getting students comfortable. This is also for setting the tone, setting the climate, getting them comfortable. My students might post 8 nouns that represent themselves, like I'll say I'm a pirate, I'm a traveler, I'm a musician, I wish, I'm a road runner, I'm like the wind. And when I get to number 4 or 5, I start disclosing things that even I don't know about myself. I might use adjectives, shy, boring, exotic, sloppy. I might use verbs. I like to entertain, amuse, push, her word earlier, beg, dream, publicize. Different words just to get students to chat and talk and find out about each other. There's a website called Moms Who Think, and at this website, Moms Who Think, you can get adjectives, verbs, and nouns. There's a whole set of them, a whole suite of them at this particular website for students to choose from, okay? Just as a little starter kind of thing. Toner Climate, pictures of the world. Having you find a picture that someone's put into Greenland or Iceland or South America and have the student describe how that picture represents them, just as an icebreaker to get things started, or post your favorite picture. I have my students post commitments. I have my students post expectations. Commitments and expectations are really important for returning adult students, older students, because once they post them, they're less likely to drop. Once they post them, everyone's read them and they interact around them. And I use commitments and expectations always in my class. I might have them post accomplishments. Number 2 gets at feedback. There's a little tool here.
I think July is a great time to visit the UK. Hope you're enjoying today.
Okay, I did a little. Now, if I had an audio file here, I would go to Vicaro and I would click record. Hello, how you doing? There's no microphone here, but if there was, that's also, you just put a little headset on. If you want to give students feedback, you just put a little headset on, you record, it gives you a URL, you cut and paste the URL into their paper or into the email, and they can listen to your voice feedback. When my hands are getting sore from typing so much or writing so much on a paper, this is really handy to give voice feedback. It's simpler, it's quick, it's unlimited number of minutes, I've heard. Somebody looked this up. It's not limited to 10 minutes. You can give long feedbacks if you want to. And it's free. This is a little tool free. It's called Vocaro, V-O-C-A-R-O-O. And most places where I've been presenting this, I'm getting a lot of people putting this in the green, saying this is something they can use. Someone asked me about Poll Everywhere. You're using Poll Everywhere. It's a free tool that does work with your mobiles. So you give a list of options. Students go to a website and type in, or they type in a number with the letter ABC, and it goes automatically into the talk as you're presenting. You get the results. What's your first name? James. James, you want to explain how you're using used Poll Everywhere?
We just use it in one of the sessions in King's Learning Institute in regards to an EAP module where it's about educational policy, and obviously it can be quite a dry subject after lunch when you're lecturing to 80 academics. So we just use this as a way to get audience feedback, and we said about bringing along a device beforehand, but as I said, you can text in answers. You don't have to have a smartphone. You can use Twitter, and it's great because you can also get text responses as well. So if you have a question, they can put a text response, and it appears at the front of the lecture theatre, and it gets a lot of the people engaged and actually contributing to the lecture. So it went down really well.
Anyone else heard of this or used this? Yeah, how are you using it?
We're using it in library sessions for biomedical and medical students to ask them what level of how confident they feel in finding journal literature at the beginning of the session, and then we do it at the end as well, so that we get a bit of an idea very immediately about what impact the session has had. Two things on that. We are using the free version, and I believe it's limited to about 40 responses. So that's one thing that you have to bear in mind if it's a big group. And the other thing is that a lot of us are on managed computers, and IT have had a lot of problems actually downloading where you create the poll and embed it into a PowerPoint presentation. They've really struggled to do that for us. So we've had a little bit of a limitation there, but it has worked really well. It's been very good tool.
There's something also I need to mention. This is the one feedback example where it's student to instructor. The other ones are from instructor. The Vocaro is from, well, it could probably be from students as well, but this is from instructor to student. This is from student to instructor. So feedback works both ways, in effect. So have you used it a lot, or?
It's been running in a lot of our sessions this year. It was one of my colleagues started it a couple of years ago now.
Mark, have you heard of this?
Yes, I have. You heard of it? I was actually not using this. I was using something similar, so just a more classic audience response system.
Well, okay, right, clicker systems. Yeah. Anyone use clickers? My son was almost kicked out of college for using clicker. Well, his girlfriend's clicker. At Easter a few years ago, all the girls went on holiday early, and the guys were left in the rooms, and they all had their girlfriend's clickers. And the instructor noticed there were only 20 people in the room out of 80, and all the guys were in the room clicking for their girlfriend. I don't know, they're all saps. I don't know what their problem was. But my son was caught about the week earlier for smoking some kind of substance on campus with the star of the football team, the American football team, and he had to cover for the head quarterback, so he was already under probation. So the following week, they caught him for using his girlfriend. He had a choice of being kicked out of school and losing his parents' free tuition, or dropping the class and admitting and blah 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 for using. I mean, it got pretty serious. Just from something like clickers, almost getting expelled from school and having where you had free tuition, basically. So I learned a lot about the clicker system myself in a different way at that time. But yeah, so there's other polling systems, blog poll, micro poll, other kinds of things. I guess I got that blog poll. You can embed these in a blog. People can vote on different issues and so forth. Curiosity, fun, and games. There's stuff in the news every day that build curiosity, and this is the top downloaded chapter in the book, is curiosity. I was just amazed that was the top chapter. Inquiry, right? This guy, at age 101, ran his last marathon. He didn't start running marathons till he was like 80 years old because his family all died. He needed something to do. And if you taught a fitness class, if you taught a healthcare class, and this was in the news that day, or something about athletic training, talk about the motivation behind something like that. There's news events every day that link in to all academic disciplines. You just got to find them and embed them into your classes. I start off with little tidbits in the news in my syllabi from things that happened in the last year or two to get my students to see that things really do apply in the real world. There's really is stuff that goes on in the real world that relate to this class. So I'm always finding things or trying to find things. Jeopardy games, quiz games online. There's a website called jeopardylabs.com where you can build game show kinds of things. As I mentioned earlier, there are people repurposing TED Talks with questions, multiple choice, true, false, other kinds of things to get students to not just watch the video, but trying to assess their knowledge of what they learned from the video with open-ended questions, think questions, deeper questions, discussion questions. TED people are repurposing and hiring instructional designers, actually, to do this. And they're not the only ones. There are other companies that today in the U.S., educational technology companies are getting a lot of venture capital. So there's a lot of folks building software for education and videos and so forth. And there's a huge movement to hire. There's actually a company called Udemy, which is letting professors put courses on the web and charging any price you want, free to whatever. Some instructors are quitting their day jobs and just putting classes up in ancient history or C++ programming. And that company's hiring instructional designers like crazy in San Francisco. Anyhow, it's a little side question because I get emails that are trying to hire folks. So curiosity, fun, and games, online quizzes, just quizzing yourself to see if you know something, little challenge games. Music. This one's kind of interesting. That woman there, her name is Amy Brevelt. Amy's a friend of mine in Hawaii. She teaches high school history. And I had her up here. Let's see if we can find Amy. I know I had her up here a second ago. But maybe it's in, there she is. Let's see, there she is. She sings the song for us. She's got 50-some songs up on the web that you can access and use. Let's see if we can find a better one there. Unfortunately, here we go. This one we'll get. She's got a bunch of these things up from the Vikings, the French Revolution here, and she thinks of these on the way home from work. And she's repurposed a whole suite of songs, whether it's Trojan War, Tainted Love, Charlemagne by Call Me by Blondie, or the Vikings, Personal Jesus, Depeche Mode. She's got 50, 60 of these things, and now her students are designing their own videos to explain history. So it's a unique way of using the internet, and she's got an assistant who's the choir director on the Big Island of Hawaii, and together they work as a team, and they become internationally known for their History for Music Lovers website, actually. So just a little aside, this would be a piqued curiosity of history. Well, our history person's gone, unfortunately. My friend Brian Ford, I stayed at his house last night. He's got his whole life as a microbiologist at Cambridge and other places up on the web. All his videos, all his interviews in the news. He was the head of Mensa here in the UK for a while. He's got like 30 books and so forth. Just retired from Cambridge, and he has a new theory, a controversial theory about dinosaurs. Let's see where Brian is here.
Hello, I'm Brian Ford, and in laboratory news, I'm looking at a theory about dinosaurs. The thing is that they just don't make sense. The loading on each limb of a terrestrial dinosaur would be up to 10 tons, even more. Their footprints would be so much deeper than those that we observe. And think of the metabolic losses as they held those vast, heavy tails erect. In fact, I think the habit of dinosaurs was entirely different from what we regularly see in books and on television. I conclude that dinosaurs were aquatic.
So he got lambasted in Wikipedia for this, in his Wikipedia site, but apparently some professors at the University of London are now starting to back up his claims. So he has a website called Telemonitor with different interviews that he's done, all up on a website. He was on the BBC, he's been on many shows. The point is here that students can now track the life of a scientist online. It's going to be more and more pervasive in the next couple of decades. We'll see this. We can get inspired by watching videos, listening to podcasts, reading articles from someone in the news. Number 4 is variety, the spice of life. I bring in guest experts for some variety, so they're not just hearing from me. I brought my friend Jay Cross in, who has a book on informal learning. He also coined the word e-learning. This is the guy, or one of the people, the original coiners of the word e-learning. So we had him talk about what e-learning was like in the 90s, why it evolved as a term, is it important today, and so forth. And my students sat and listened to Jay in Google Hangouts. So I get guest experts. Variety and novelty. There is a website for randomizing your content in class. I randomize who's going to present using a randomizer tool. I randomize the sequence using a random number sequence generator, so it's not always the same students presenting first. It's not always me lecturing in the same format. I might alter the lecture. I taught my spring class last year in reverse, from the end to the beginning, just to get some variety into my class. There are flipping coin websites and dice websites that you can use in different ways. Autonomy and choice. I have my students, as I said earlier, go to a computer lab, and each one gets 5 websites to explore and report on, 1 or 2 of them. So I have 100 websites I want to show my students. I have 20 students. Each one gets 5 to explore. They all come to the front and present 1 or 2 as a way to look at what's available in the field and so forth. Autonomy and choice. I'll try and take a quick break here in 1 minute. I know you need to leave. I'll get through number 5 and then we'll take a quick. And so, autonomy and choice. One of my students said, Dr. Bonk, I don't want to do a glossary of 100 words in your class. I want to do a multimedia glossary. So what she did is she linked in videos in psychology that she found to her glossary of terms that she was putting it in, like feedback, shaping, positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and so on. And so as you see up here, she's got a video glossary. Each one of the words that she has underneath here has a video linked to it that can be watched and linked and so forth. So she's got a video-based, it's kind of hard to look at the screen, and she's got links to people, she's got links to theorists, so different theorists, Pavlov and Skinner, and videos from them, as well as her glossary of terms. She did what's called a multimedia glossary of what she's learned in my class. And other students started to do that too. Autonomy and choice. There's web resources available just last month on Shakespeare that was never found before, his annotated dictionary. A couple of years ago, the Dead Sea Scrolls were made available online. Species of the World online. There's so many resources today in all fields we can find and allocate and have students explore them in our classes. So that's the first 5 principles of the TEC-Variety model. Tone, commitments, expectations, 8 nouns I mentioned, 8 verbs, encouragement or feedback, the poll everywhere, Ficaro, curiosity, fun, and games, things in the news, online game shows, quiz shows, variety, bringing in guest experts into your class, trying something out that's a little different, choice, giving a menu of options. I give students 8 assignments, pick any 3 or 4. The first time I taught online, I had 4 assignments. I gave 4 to everybody, the same 4, and they hated me. The next time I gave them 10 assignments, you pick any 4, and they loved me, okay? Students want some choice, but not too much choice, okay? First time I had an assistant, I said, Emily, give them the students a reminder every week about what's coming due. They'll hate you, but they'll like me. End of the semester, they loved her, they hated me because Emily sent the reminder. They want the reminders. They want the options. So anyways, of these 5, tone, encouragement, curiosity, variety, autonomy, if you were to pick the most important to you in your classes, would it be tone or climate? Raise your hands. Encouragement or feedback? Curiosity, fun, and games. Variety, novelty. Autonomy and choice. Interesting. The other point about all this is you don't have to try all these things. That, 1 or 2 new things a semester is maximum. I wouldn't do more than 2. One is enough. So be careful trying too much of these. I'm showing you a lot because I hope you pick 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 to think about. The other thing is the framework is important. I'm showing you some technologies and they go away. They die out or they are free one day and not free the next, like the Flipgrid. So keep in mind the framework should have some staying power, I think. It may last well beyond this Web 2.0 age that we're in. Any other comments or suggestions? Does it fit? Does it work so far for people? I mean, does it make some sense, the model? Maybe what we can all do, you still have your note cards with you. If you could write one idea, activity that I mentioned, just one thing on the note card, just one thing. And I can flip back through these. Whether it's multimedia glossaries, randomization, bring a guest experts, live scientists, quiz games, news, voice feedback, all those things. A lot of things we went through there. Just one thing, don't write too much, just 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, and then just pull up your card and take a break with that card, talk to other people what's on that card. I'll see you all back here in about 10 or 15 minutes.